Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Tape on Inside the Birds Network, where myself, former Philadelphia Eagles tight end Clay Harbor, and the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Cosell, like I said before, this time last time, the guy that watches more tape, more film than anybody in the business, break down the previous Eagles game against the Washington Commanders, where the Eagles won 38-31. I thought it was a little bit more it was closer. It wasn't as close as the score indicated. And then we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys. It's Dallas week. I've played in this game before. I know Greg has broken down tape on several of them. Dallas week is always a fun week because it's a little bit of a rivalry. And both these teams are good this year, hunting that NFC East title. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it, Greg. After watching the film, you come back to the office on Sunday, you watch the tape on TV, you watch the game on TV, then you get that all 22. You come in, you got the clicker and the pointer in your hand in your office, and you're watching the tape of the Eagles versus the Commanders. What's the first thing that jumped out to you?
Well, there's a couple of things on each side of the ball, I would say, that kind of jumped out at me. Number one, if we start with offense, Clay, I think it was evident that their coaching staff felt, and it obviously starts with the head coach, felt that this would be a passing game on offense. They made this a Jalen Hurts throwing game. Yeah. They did not run the ball very much to start at all. That was not really a foundational part of their early game plan. They felt, I'm sure, based on their ability to protect and their ability to work the secondary of the Commanders, which had been a little revamped, that they could throw the ball efficiently and effectively, both in a sustaining manner and in a big play manner. And for the most part, it turned out to be the case. On the other side, and then, you can jump in here and we can talk in a little more detail. On the other side, I would say that what jumped out to me was a little bit of a concern about the Eagles secondary. This was the second time that Sam Howell and the Commanders passing game really had a pretty big game against the Eagles secondary, a little bit of a different secondary, obviously. Kevin Byard, first game, played every snap. I guess a part of me, because I see every team for the most part in the league, would be a little bit concerned, and we'll find out. Sometimes pass rush can compensate for it, depending on who you're playing against. But a little bit concerned about maybe the lack of speed in their secondary. And I thought that showed up a little bit.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And me, the same thing. When I came back, watching the game, I'm turning on the film and said, what happened to the secondary? The secondary used to be a strength of the team.
Yeah.
Felt like last year, watching the team. It was something you could count on them. Obviously, there was a lot of sacks, a lot of pressure, and I felt like there was a little bit of pressure by the Eagles, but this wasn't like last week we talked about. This wasn't a big Eagles pressure game. Only one sack given up against a Commanders team that is historically bad at giving up sacks.
Yep.
We were watching the tape last week, Greg, and we said, we think this Eagle D-line is just going to get after them. They had given up 6 sacks, and the Commanders had, and we thought that they're really going to have a day with Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat. Obviously, Jalen Carter got injured. Milton Williams, we're going to really, Brandon Graham, have an opportunity to get after Sam Howell, but my hat was off to Sam Howell. He made some nice throws. He avoided pressure. He moved around the pocket nicely, and this Commanders offensive line did a better job than I thought. And then to combat what you said, to go along with it, I thought that these receivers were getting open, whether it was Dotson, McLaurin, Logan Thomas had 6 catches, and then, Crowder, obviously, he's not as well-known as guy, but he was getting open too. So a bunch of different receivers give up almost 4 yards passing. So, I agree. I thought that was an issue that the Eagles definitely have to fix, and I think they can moving forward, but that was the first thing that jumped out to me.
No, so we saw that the same, Clay. And obviously they did not blitz very much. They only rushed 5 or more on 9 of Howell's 55 dropbacks. That's not a high pressure percentage. So they obviously believed that their front could generate pressure, which for the most part it didn't. Obviously, Reddick had the big sack late in the game. That was their only sack. The thing that really stood out to me, too, is I'm watching the game on tape. I'm getting into the third quarter, early fourth quarter, and I'm noticing, God, they're really throwing the ball well on first down, which a lot of people believe is the best down to throw. But and so I looked up the numbers when I was done because, normally the way I do my work is I don't look at numbers first, Clay. I watch the tape, and normally the tape speaks to me, and then I look up other things. But I don't like to be prejudiced or biased by numbers before I turn on the tape. So I kind of let the tape speak to me. But I'm noticing, boy, they're really throwing the ball well on first down, and a lot. And then I looked up the numbers, and Howell was 19 for 26 for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns on first down, and of course was not sacked. The sack did not come on first down. And I'm thinking to myself, somewhere along the line, however they choose to do it, you and I are not in the meetings, so we don't know, what they're discussing. But that's got to be cleaned up. You can't allow quarterbacks to be that successful throwing the football on first down.
No, 100% agree with you. And when you're in a drive and you're a player and you're having success on first down, it just frees you up.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just in a vibe, you're in a zone. You don't have to worry about getting to the second down and the third down is obviously the pressure down, the money down. If you can make these big plays on first down, then that changes the outlook of the game. So jumping on to focusing completely, so let's say the offensive side of the ball here for the Eagles. Anything that you really liked what you saw from the Eagles there? I know for me, Jalen Hurts to me had a bounce that game.
I mean, I thought that, again, I thought they felt they could throw it, so they made this an 11 personnel game. And so people know what 11 personnel is. If they don't, that means 1 back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers. Because they've jumped back and forth this season, Clay, between playing with 3 wideouts and 2 tight ends, depending on the opponent. And this was an 11 personnel game. 34 of Hurts' 41 dropbacks came out 11 personnel. He was incredibly efficient. He was 26 for 31 for 298 and all 4 touchdowns. All 34 of his dropbacks that came out of 11 came versus the Commanders' sub defense, which makes sense. They're going to match up to 3 wide with their, nickel or dime. But I thought that jumped out to me that this was, they played a lot with 11 personnel and they threw the ball a lot out of it. And obviously they felt that was the way to play this game. And certainly given Hurts's numbers and efficiency, it certainly played out that way.
No, yeah, absolutely. One thing I wanted to ask you what you're seeing is it just doesn't seem like the Eagles' run game is having the same effectiveness that it was early in the season. I mean, early in the season, the Eagles haven't rushed for over 100 yards in 3 consecutive games.
Yep.
I know Sua Opeta has started all 3 of those, and Cam Jorgens looks like he might be able to come back, hopefully sooner than later. But what are you seeing on the tape? Is there a reason specific that you see that the Eagles aren't able to get this running game going like it was early in the season?
Well, I think there's 2 ways to look at that. I think in this game, they chose not to run it. Okay. Yeah. Now they did run it more in the second half, just the way the game started to play out. But I think this was a game where they chose not to run it. And I think it speaks to the fact that they do have a multidimensional offense and can beat you in different ways. But you're right. Overall, they've not been quite as efficient running the ball. And I'm just being honest. I don't have a brilliant answer for that. Believe me, and I don't want to make something up and, sound like I'm smart when I don't know the answer. But, normally how it works in the run game. Normally if you're not running the ball well, it's because either guys are missing individual blocks, combo blocks are not happening with the proper timing, the back is not, hitting the hole at the exact timing within the run that he's supposed to. I mean, it's not complex. These are the reasons why your run game is not effective. But this week, I wasn't as worried about it after watching the tape this week because I thought they weren't necessarily looking for this game to be about their running game. And I think it's a positive for their offense because they've shown they can win in a number of different ways depending on how they choose to play in a given week.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to the receiving game, I mean, I know it's been said ad nauseum, Greg, about obviously A.J. Brown and how big you know who he is. But why not add to it, man? I mean, the guy's incredible.
Yeah.
6 straight games, 125 yards.
Yeah.
I think he really should be in the MVP conversation, in that conversation with Tyreek Hill as the #1 receiver in football. What a move that was to bring him home. So we seeing from the receiving core / pass game, Dallas Goedert, quieter game, only 4 catches, 36 yards, but he's still at least getting on the stat sheet. But big games from Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Are you seeing anything specific on tape from what they're doing?
You know, this is a team that plays a lot out of 2x2 sets as opposed to 3x1 sets, which doesn't mean they never play at a 3x1, but they play at a more 2x2. And I think there's probably reasons for that. You know, there's probably multiple reasons for that. But almost always Brown is on the same side as Goddard. Sometimes he's in the slot. Sometimes he's outside of Goddard. So that's something that they do. But if you're speaking specifically about Brown, you know, I think there's always with a receiver, there's always 2 parts to it. There's the scheme part and how they run concepts to get him the ball. And then there's the individual part where the player himself makes plays. Obviously, both of those things are happening at a really high level with Brown and the Eagles passing game. You know, there's a number of plays because we actually went through Brown in great detail this week for my NFL matchup show because I'm actually going to do a piece on Brown. And there's great examples where, you know, the concept presents the throw to Brown and, you know, he's available. But then there's also cases where just his one-on-one individual ability, you know, there's a physicality to his game, not just at the catch point, which is critical, obviously, but the beginning of his routes, when he gets pressed, which is not often, but he does, he just is physical to work through press. And I remember having a conversation, I've had this many times through the years with Mike Quick. I'm sure you've spoken to him as well at times. And, you know, I would talk to Q about it and, you know, we'd start talking about technique and all that. And he'd say, hey, all that's great, but sometimes you just have to physically beat the crap out of the guy when he's pressing you. And I think A.J. Brown, you know, is really good at that. Now, obviously, it's subtle. It's not like he just shoves a guy to the ground. But I think just the way he uses his body, just the way he leans, the strength in his upper body, you know, I think he's really, really good at winning with physicality.
Yeah, and this reminds me of a little bit when I signed with New England Patriots. You know, I was with the Jaguars for 4 years, and I'm a free agent. Looking back, I probably should have stuck with Jacksonville, the same offer to stay there, go to New England. I decided I'm going to go to New England, win Super Bowls, play with Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, all that stuff. I was really excited about figuring out what Rob Gronkowski does so well. You know, I watch him on tape all the time and really excited about getting in that tight end room, being on the field with Gronk, picking his brain and figuring out why he was so good and what I could implement in my own game. And, you know, we go out there, first set of OTAs, and I'm watching Gronk and okay, he's not that fast.
No.
He doesn't run crazy routes. I mean, he'll drop a ball occasionally, but he just makes plays. And I couldn't figure it out. I'm looking, we have Martellus Bennett right here, Rob Gronkowski right there. Martellus Bennett, great player. He ain't Rob Gronkowski. Martellus Bennett just as big. He's faster, more athletic. He ain't Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski just made plays. And I'm sitting here watching him in person, watching him trying to figure it out. And sometimes guys just make plays. And as much as I watch A.J. Brown, yeah, he's big, he's physical, he's fast, but this dude just makes plays. Yeah, 2 guys on him. He's going to go up and get the balls. He run the best routes I've ever seen? No, but he runs good routes. Is he the fastest receiver in the league? No, he's not. Is he the tallest guy? No, he makes plays and he just keeps getting it done. But I figured out Gronk. I go to ask Gronk one play. Oh, Gronk, what made you break inside there? Because, you know, I probably would have sat that down. And I'm not saying this is A.J. Brown, but Gronk, I just decided to run inside instead of I was looking for some intellectual,
right,
answer, cerebral thought, and this guy's just going out. He's like, I just decided to go inside, and Tom hit him. Next thing you know, they score a touch. Some guys can just play and make plays, and I know everybody's trying to break down A.J. Brown. This guy just makes plays week in, week out, and it just reminded me of my time I spent with Rob Gronkowski studying this dude. The dude could just make plays.
And, you know, it's funny you mentioned Brown because he's so good at run after the catch. I think people probably think he's bigger than he is. He's only just over 6 feet. Now, he's probably 210, 215. It's not like he's 190, but it's
Yeah.
not like he's 6'3", 225. He's just
Yes.
over 6 feet. And yet he makes great contested catches. He's certainly, as we said, physical run after catch. But you're right. Some guys just have a knack for doing certain things that, you know, they do over and over again. And then you compare it to what their sort of traits profile is, and it doesn't necessarily match up, but they just keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the guy's really special. And then moving on, quickly touch on the Eagles defense because I know we already talked about it soon. But anything you're seeing from the D line? Are you worried about the D line? Last couple of weeks, not a ton of pressure from them. Are you worried that maybe
I wouldn't say I'm worried. I think they're all good players. I mean, I personally think Josh Sweat is their best defensive lineman, snap after snap.
Yeah.
And I think he's an absolutely terrific player. Obviously, Reddick has made late sacks in games, and that show, it's like anything later in a game, it's magnified. It seems to have more meaning, but, it's always that way. I remember, just a very quick baseball analogy. I remember years ago, people used to say, well, Derek Jeter's really clutch because he'd get hits in the, in the 8th and 9th inning. And then with all the baseball analytics, it turns out he did the same thing in innings 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and 7 through 9. It's just that 7 through 9, it's closer to the end of the game. So it seems more important, but he did the same thing all the time, so no, I don't think I'm worried about their D-line. I think that's still a strength. Carter obviously hurt his back. We'll see what his deal is this week. I think he's supposed to go. But I still think they have a lot of talent there, and it's a really strong group. And I don't think all of a sudden they're not going to be any good, Clay. I think it's a really strong group.
Yeah, agreed. And I would say the only thing that I was seeing there is it looks to me like Reddick and Sweat they used to have more of a rotation. You're not seeing much in Nolan Smith at all. And this is a guy who at training camp, talking to Kelsey, Lane, BG, they're like, this guy's going to be good. He obviously has to get stronger and more physical, but he's going to be a good player. So I'm surprised there wasn't as much of a rotation there. BG, I think, got 10 to 15 snaps. Nothing crazy. So he's not playing as much either. I thought he played well, had a couple of pressures in the game. But that's one thing. I didn't see as much of a rotation. Obviously, you want to keep Sweat and Hassan Reddick on the field. Makes sense to me. As far as the linebacker, interesting rotation they have
rotation,
there.
Yeah.
I feel like they're rotating those three guys. And you even saw Morrow and Dean on the field at the same time.
Yep.
A couple occasions there. So what's your thoughts going on at the linebacker after watching the tape?
Well, we're not there every day. So obviously they feel that as we speak now, the rotation of the three players is the best way they want to go. I guess Dean and Cunningham played the most snaps, but Morrow still played close to 30. So he's a significant part of what they do as well. We'll see. Maybe when they get to their bye, maybe they'll reassess and they'll, do more self-scouting and decide, hey, these are the two guys we want out there more than the other guy. I don't know the answer to that, but right now it's a rotation. And, I can't tell. You'd really have to, spend a couple of days just watching every single situation to try to figure out why guys play in certain situations. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, exactly. And we already touched on the defensive backfield a little bit there. Anything you see from obviously Kevin Byard? I think he's going to continue to have his role increased as he goes. I've been that guy. I've been cut on a Monday and been on the field, been back at practice on a Tuesday or Wednesday and on the field on a Sunday. I know it's hard to pick up an offense or a defense in his case, but he's going to continue to get more comfortable, and he is going to be a big part of this team, and he is going to help this defensive backfield. And I think that that's going to help. But what do you think they do? Obviously, Roby's still out for another week or two at least. So what do you think they do at the slot this week? We saw some Bradbury in the slot. Obviously, we saw some Sidney
Not recently.
Brown.
I mean, they played a ton of big nickel this week with Sidney Brown in the slot.
Yeah.
And then they also played conventional nickel where they brought in Ricks, and he played the slot.
Yeah.
I'll be real curious what they do because, CD Lamb for the Cowboys, he's been targeted 56 times this year. It's been a pretty equal distribution between the slot and outside. And, again, unless you're pretty much telling the opponent that we're playing zone, I'm not sure that Sidney Brown is your slot corner against CD Lamb. So we'll see. But they played a ton of snaps of big nickel last week.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do. I think that's a question as we go into this game against the Cowboys. I think it's a legitimate question. The Cowboys have 3 pretty quality wideouts, all of whom line up in multiple locations within the formation. In Lamb, who's obviously a very good player, in Gallup, who's been a good player, not quite what he was before his knee injury, but he's not a stiff, and Cooks, who's always been a good player wherever he's gone. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how the Eagles decide how they want to play this. They've played a good amount of man coverage this year, but we'll see. If you don't have the people to play man, it's tough to line up and play man.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. You got to have, when it comes to man-to-man, it takes a specific type of player to play man-to-man as a cornerback or slot corner. Before we tie a bow on this game, this is called Inside the Tape. So we gotta show you guys a couple pieces of tape that we liked from the game against the Commanders. This is just the Eagles run defense I picked right here. Seeing they're giving up some more yardage and some more yards per carry here, Greg. I'll let this run till we see the
Yeah, this was the long run by Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
This is against their 4-2 nickel.
Yeah. So here, we got nickel sub package, and we got a nickel guard.
All this starts with the double right there. By the right tackle and the right guard with the double right there. You can see that. I mean, they're moving.
Yeah,
that's right there. Just what you're pointing to. I forget who the D tackle is right there, just because he's covered up.
Yeah, he's covered up.
But that's where it starts. Unless you can go back a little bit.
Yeah. Go back here. Let's see.
Yeah, there you go. Is that Fletch?
Looks like Fletch.
Yeah, it looks like Fletch. And then the pulling guard, it's a gap scheme run. The pulling guard gets the linebacker in the hole. And, when your D tackle, and Fletcher's had a good season, but when your D tackle gets removed from the point of attack like that and gets pushed back 4 or 5 yards, it's really a problem in the run game. And this was Bradbury getting beat by McLaurin, and he's playing off coverage. See, this to me would be a little bit of a concern, because he's playing off coverage. You can see he's playing a good 7-8 yards off of McLaurin.
Yep.
And McLaurin still runs by him. So if you want to run this, we can see it. It's at the top of the screen so people know where to look.
Yeah, right here.
But the top of the screen, there's and Bradbury also got stuck with his eyes in the backfield, which you got to be careful about that. When you're on the outside, you're not a primary run defender. So while you're looking inside like that, especially when McLaurin is in front of you, you're not a primary run defender when you're a corner outside the numbers. So your eyes, and he's a veteran, he knows better than that. He should not be responding like that.
No, absolutely. And it's a little tough to see exactly what they're running here, because you see Blankenship does start to get some depth and widen. It's definitely not a 2 look, but
I mean, I think it's probably in the quarters family. I would say it's in the quarters family.
Yeah.
Because obviously Bradbury's not a cover 2 corner. He's running with number 1.
He's running with
even down below, the corner down below, Slay, he's not playing cover 2. So this is quarters.
Quarters, yeah.
Yeah, this is quarters.
So this was something I wanted to show. Back-to-back plays here about the defense is got to get better here.
You see a great example there. Once McLaurin gets on top of Bradbury, he doesn't have the recovery speed to be able to make up and and make a play on the ball.
And then you got to get pressure, especially
there's no pressure. But because McLaurin wins so quick, Howell's able to throw this with the precise timing required. He doesn't have to wait on this.
Yeah.
So
and here you're able to see how a chip and body presence affects a defensive end edge rusher right here with Hassan Reddick. Logan Thomas. It makes Reddick go inside and then pretty much out of the play.
And then because of the run action, they also helped the left tackle on Sweat there. I believe that was Sweat. Just again, body presence. He doesn't necessarily have to chip him, but he's there.
Yeah. All right. All right. And that is,
So is it Cowboy Week now?
it is on to Cowboy Week, Greg. And now,
We started a little bit by talking about the receivers, but, we can continue, obviously.
yeah, for sure. And before we do that, we're going to pause for a moment to pay some bills here and talk about a couple of partners with the show.
Hey, it's Jeff Mosher. I love the fall because football's back, but it's also my busiest season. Between work, kids going back to school, youth sports and activities, there's just not enough time, especially to make a good home-cooked meal. That's why I love HelloFresh. They deliver farm-fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to my doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't waste time researching new recipes and planning meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. How efficient is that? Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you'll get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and those who love variety. My personal favorites are the spicy Creole stew and pecan-crusted trout, 2 dinners my whole family enjoyed, and we actually had time to sit down together and eat at the table. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use that code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit.
And now we are back, and it is time to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. I always loved this game when I was playing with the Eagles. I love this week because it is a rivalry week. Everything's a little bit more energetic, it got a little bit tighter, but it's fun. You got the Cowboys coming in, who always bring a solid team. So, Greg, your overall thoughts on Cowboys week? You came in, you watched some tape last week against the Rams. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys?
My first thought is they're probably already tailgating down at the link, Clay. What don't you think?
Yeah,
that would be my first thought.
We're getting ready for this one.
All right, let's again just give an overview on each side of the ball, and then we can you can jump in.
Yeah.
Overview on offense. Last 2 games, Dak Prescott has played his two best games of the season. 2 things stand out. He's playing with much more timing and rhythm from the pocket, throwing the ball much more confidently, therefore is willing to make tight window throws that are demanded in this league. The second part about Dak is that he's made more second reaction movement plays the last 2 weeks, which had not really been a part of his game. And now you have to be at least aware of that as a defense. Defensively, 2 things stand out on defense. Number 1, they have tremendous quality depth along their defensive front. They're incredibly multiple with their front alignments. They move people around a lot. They look for matchups. They look for isolations. And number 2, they're a high percentage man coverage team. So you're going to get man coverage. So those are sort of general parameter thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think this team is good at getting pressure on the opposing quarterback, and then they got a couple of good cornerbacks. I think Gilmore and Bland are solid, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that matchup between Gilmore, Bland, and Brown and Smith and how that goes. And the one place that Jalen Hurts has struggled this year is against pressure. He has an 80 rating and 5 interceptions. So I think a big key this week overall, looking at this Dallas Cowboys team, is making sure you keep Jalen Hurts clean. Keep Micah Parsons, keep Lawrence, keep all these guys off of your quarterback. Give him a chance to get the ball downfield to the best quarterback in the league. And I think that the way you can do that is obviously establishing the run a little more than you have been. Establish the run early, open some things up on the outside. I know those big guys up front love to pass block, but when they don't know if you're passing or running the ball, it makes that a whole lot easier. So make sure you stick with the run for a little bit before you just turn this into a passing game. Is one of the biggest things, in my opinion, going into this game.
That's a great point. They're a fast flow defense. When you put on the tape of the Cowboys D, they play fast. They've got a lot of speed, a lot of range. They like to react quickly to what they see. I think you want to see some misdirection in the run game. You want to grab their eyes because they're going to go and then go against what they initially see. I think that's one way to run the ball in this game. You don't want to make this, as good as the Eagles' O-line is and arguably the best in the league. I think they've been a little up and down in pass pro the last couple of weeks, so we'll see. This Cowboy defensive front has a lot of really good players. It's not just Micah Parsons, but they move him around a lot. You don't know where he is necessarily. I mean, you know where he is, but, you're not going to know, until he shows where he is.
Yeah.
But they have Lawrence. They have Armstrong. These guys also line up all over. So this is a very difficult defensive front to play against because of the versatility and the deployment of the various people. And we know that Micah Parsons as an individual can be a game wrecker.
No, absolutely. I think that, like you said, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, even getting guys like Dante Fowler, Mozzie Smith, the rookie in there. They got a lot of different guys that can affect the quarterback. So big game for the Eagles offensive line. Obviously, you got to be able to keep Jalen Hurts clean. Just talked about how he's been doing against pressure this year. Keep him clean, give him time to throw. I think they'll win the matchups against the cornerback. And then talking about, if we go to the defensive side of the ball, I think that you got to get some pressure on Dak. And
without question.
Yeah, and you don't want to have to send extra rushers because, like we talked about, CeeDee Lamb plays a lot in the slot, Greg. And the Eagles, not that Bradbury and Slay have been playing great ball right now, not that they've been murdering it over here, but the slot defender has been a problem for the Eagles. And I don't know if I'm confident saying that there's a guy that can guard CeeDee Lamb in the slot.
I think that's a fair statement, Clay. I mean, Ricks is the guy when they go conventional nickel. We talked about the big nickel with Sidney Brown. We'll see if that's in play this week as much as it was last week. We don't know the answer to that, but they're a pretty good passing team. But the key is pressure on Dak. That is the absolute key. Yeah. And I'm curious to see what the Cowboys' approach is. If they feel they can come out throwing or if they feel that they have to try to run it. Pollard can be explosive, but he's not a true foundation back. Now, for one game, can he be? If the game plays out a certain way, can he carry 20 times? Sure. He's not a 20 carry a week guy over the course of his season, but, every game plays out differently. But, Dak has been really confident in turning the ball loose. You saw the touchdown this past week to Ferguson, the tight end, the first touchdown he threw, the seam ball. I mean, that was a confident throw. And he's played really well the last 2 weeks, been efficient, been explosive. And, and Lamb is really good run after catch as well, particularly when he's in the slot.
Yeah, you look back, like for the Cowboys, I mean, 3 weeks ago, it was looking bad for them. They just got dismantled by the 49ers, 42-10, a drumming that was even worse in the final score, in my opinion. They lose Leighton Vander Esch. People think they lose Trayvon Diggs to injured reserve. People think they're really going, in a direction to where they're not going to be able to salvage the season. So my hat's off to Dallas for how they've bounced back these last couple of weeks and had some big wins. This is a good team. Dak looked great. Watching the film, Dak looked like he was playing some really good football. This receiving core looked good. It looked like a very tough team, getting pressure, getting turnovers, winning on special teams. So this is going to be a tough game. People that think that the Cowboys are going to come in and the Eagles are just going to walk all over them, got to realize it's going to be a tough game. And I've been really impressed with what I've seen from the Cowboys. Now, that being said, Greg, let's get to a little bit of the tape. It's called tape, so let's watch a little more. We got some tape on the Cowboys versus the Rams. So we're going to check some of this out and see what we can see here. We have the Cowboys defense.
You got the defense. So they're in what we call a loaded front with 3 D linemen to one side of the offensive center.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I got to. Oh, this is a beautiful play. This is Dagger.
Yeah,
This is actually beautifully designed play. The Rams run this a lot. It's in every team's playbook, as you know. Dagger is an inside vertical with an outside dig. It's a really good route concept. You can run it against man or zone. Most teams run it against zone. Cowboys are playing man to the side. I think it's man. I can't remember every detail about the play, but this is beautifully designed. This is and Stafford. Stafford might throw this ball as well as any quarterback in the league because it's Dagger.
Absolutely. And this is to show if you can block this front, there's going to be some holes in this defense. Obviously,
that was cover one. That was actually cover one.
Cover one, yeah.
And actually, Atwell, who caught the ball, he's a little receiver, but he ran a great route. He used his vertical stem to expand Deron Blind before breaking inside on his dig. He ran a great route. And I'm sure he did that because it was man. If it was zone, he wouldn't have had to do that because the corner would have been playing with outside leverage to begin with. But because it's man, he needed to expand him before he broke inside. But that's the Dagger concept.
Absolutely. All right, let's stop sharing there. I got another play for us, Greg. Let's check this one out. So here it looks like we're in the big red zone, not quite the actual red zone, the big red zone. I mean, we got trips to one side, and
you got a 3-by-1.
Oh, and we have pressure. We have pressure here. This is what happens if you can get to Dak Prescott.
Was this the one where Aaron Donald just ate up Zach Martin?
Yep.
Oh God, yeah. Look at that. Look at Aaron Donald eat up Zach Martin here. I mean, Zach Martin's a great player, but so look at 99. It's just to the left of the screen, people, and then we'll just watch right there. Just watch him eat up Zach Martin. This is unbelievable, given how great a player Zach Martin is. He just destroys him.
Yeah, and almost came away with the ball right there. Big play.
Yep.
And that just shows you like you got to get pressure. One of the ways you can really stop this high-powered offense is you have to get pressure.
And just one quick point that relates to that. I know Tyron Smith did not play last week. We're talking on a Wednesday evening. I don't know what his status will be for this week. If he does not go, they've been playing Edoga at left tackle. He is a beatable player for Josh Sweat. So we'll see who plays left tackle. Obviously, Tyron Smith, if healthy, is still a very good player. Edoga is a beatable player in a one-on-one matchup.
Yep. And then right here, I want to show we got Brandon Cooks. So this is CeeDee Lamb isn't the only receiver on this team. Obviously, he had the 12 catches, huge game, and he is a threat. But Brandon Cooks still got some juice, Greg.
Yep. And obviously the way they've set this up, this sets up the one-on-one with Cooks on the outside, because I believe that's Lamb who's number 2 to Trips here. So he works inside. They go with him, and now what do you get? You get the one-on-one.
Yep, takes 2 right there. So you got to be careful in forgetting about Brandon Cooks. And here we're going to look at the pressure. You need to get pressure, and right here they don't put any pressure on him. Got a double team on Aaron Donald.
Yeah, they're sliding the center to him, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
clean. And Dak's comfortable.
If Dak's comfortable, he will chew you up right here, and that's exactly what he does. Nice ball, right on time, outside, makes it look easy. And then I believe this next play, we have something too. I think we already talked about this play.
A touchdown to Ferguson?
Yep, I think it is.
This is a big-time throw. Clay, this is a big-time throw.
Yeah, look at this.
I mean, this is the seam ball to number 3 to Trips. The safeties are split. He's working against a linebacker. He sees the linebacker's back, and you're taught as a quarterback, if you see a defender's back, you throw the football. That's
defender's back means uncovered.
Yep. Yeah, split safety. Boom. I mean, that was the first touchdown of the game. That is a really confident throw by Dak. You can see it from this angle. You'll see he knew exactly what he was looking at, and he just turned this loose. There was no hesitation whatsoever.
Yep. And a nice celebration over here. Nice celebration by Schumacher.
That might have been Ferguson.
Or Ferguson. Sorry, Ferguson.
Yeah. But, that's a confident quarterback making that throw. That's I'm not sure people realize how big time a throw that is. That's not an easy throw.
Yeah. So the Eagles have their hands full. We showed you guys some tape from last week. The Eagles win over the Commanders. We showed you guys some tape of what to expect looking forward, what the Eagles need to do to win this game moving forward to the Cowboys. So you have it there. It was a great episode with our man Greg Cosell, myself, former Eagles tight end Clay Harper on Inside the Tape on Inside the Birds Network. And we will see you guys Sunday. Fly, Eagles, fly.